It is Wednesday. No, it's not. It's Thursday. It's time for the main event. Welcome one, welcome all. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. So good to have everybody here. And for those joining me on TikTok for the very first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. Tonight we're taking on the cases that demand clarity, accountability, and a drama-free look at the truth. These 6 stories are shaping the justice system right now, and as always, like we do here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, we're going to break them down with facts first, commentary only where it matters, and respect for everyone involved. So, without further delay or hang-ups, let's begin. We're going to start with the story out of Michigan, where a Michigan woman is charged with torture after police say she locked her foster children in makeshift cages for years. Now, who or for what reason would a so-called parent do something like that? Let's get into the article first, and then we'll talk about it. All right. Okay, here we go. We're in Port Huron, Michigan. A Michigan woman is behind bars facing charges of torture and child abuse for her alleged treatment of 2 foster children who were reportedly locked in cages. 39-year-old Sarah Elise Hager, who you see on the left-hand side of your screen, is charged with 1 count of torture, 2 counts each of first and second-degree child abuse. She remains behind bars on a $150,000 bond, according to jail records reviewed by Court TV. In a probable cause affidavit obtained by WDIV, shout out to that news crew up there, 2 children told investigators that they lived with Hager and suffered brutal abuse at her hands. The boy and girl said that Hager would beat them and lock them inside dark rooms and a dog cage. The boy also said that when he wet the bed, Hager beat him and rubbed his face in the urine-soaked sheets. Oh my God. She's already had her first court appearance. Hager stood mute. Even a plea of not guilty was entered on her behalf. If Hager is convicted, she can face a life sentence in prison. She was due back in court this past Tuesday for a probable cause conference. Now, this is the kind of story that really irks my nerves. Really irks my nerves for good reason. I mean, this is the kind of thing. I mean, if you don't, if these are at least you're taking care of foster children. If you don't want the responsibility, let someone else take up that job. Like I said, I'll drop in commentary where it's necessary, and trust me, that was necessary. Here's my breakdown. 39-year-old Sarah Elise Hager subjected 2 foster children to extreme abuse, including being locked up inside makeshift dog-style cages. The children lived with her from 2017 to 2021, and investigators described the conditions as torture level. The victims, who are now older and no longer in her care, again, I thank God for that, they recently came forward and detailed the abuse during interviews with authorities. Their accounts were consistent, specific, and described a pattern of confinement, beatings, and humiliation. Hager, as I mentioned before, is charged with 1 count of torture, 2 counts each of first and second degree child abuse. Now, the torture charge is a mandatory maximum of life in prison in Michigan. She was arrested on February 27 and arraigned on March 3rd. I agree that she belongs behind bars. She doesn't even have the right to call herself a mother, let alone a foster mother. She's currently jailed on a $150,000 cash only bond, and a probable cause and preliminary hearings are scheduled forthcoming. As you know, this case raises serious questions about foster care oversight. I agree with that. I agree with that one. Foster care oversight, because who's watching the foster mother, not just the foster kids? How years of alleged abuse went undetected? How did she hide it so well? And this is the real key here, because I always known that if you wanted to be a foster parent, they have to do a thorough background check to see if you were a convicted criminal, like for child abuse. Her prior criminal history should have prevented placement those two kids with this woman. It's mind boggling how that happened. I hope and pray that they put her away for a long time. Next up on this six-piece docket. Oh, here's another case of a monster drowning a child. Accused killer mom drowned child according to court documents, then told the family that the child was abducted. With the article first, courtesy of our good friends at Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Shout out. Past and present. If you know, you know. New filings in the case against a mom accused of intentionally drowning her child with autism revealed that the defendant told her own family the same alleged lie she told police. 21-year-old Patricia Ripley is charged with the murder of her 9-year-old son, identified in court documents as AR. She has pleaded not guilty, and court filings indicate that the defendant plans to argue she was sleep deprived when she allegedly confessed to the murder. Ripley's older son, Aldo Ripley Jr., sat for a deposition with attorneys in his mother's case and offered insight into the family's home before the alleged murder. Aldo Ripley Jr. described the household as peaceful and loving. My mother never yelled at me or my brother, never hit me or my brother, he said at the deposition. It was purely love, and it was a household full of that. Aldo Ripley Jr. acknowledged sleep issues in the house, saying that his younger would wake up approximately 5 times each night and would regularly struggle to fall asleep. On May 21st, 2020, Aldo Ripley Jr. was at home attending school online while his father was in a different room of the house working remotely. Patricia Ripley left with AR to run errands. Aldo Ripley Jr. recalled his father getting a phone call. His mother was on the other end, screaming and telling him that something happened to AR, that someone took him, quote unquote. Aldo Ripley Jr. and his father sped to the Home Depot, where Patricia Ripley had reported AR had disappeared. Patricia Ripley told her family and the police that 2 men had chased her, crashed her car, and then demanded drugs before stealing her phone and tablet. The stranger then allegedly grabbed AR and fled in an unknown direction. Investigators say Patricia Ripley's story began to unravel after witnesses reported seeing her try to drown the 9-year-old. Those witnesses intervened and saved the child. But prosecutors say that Patricia Ripley then drove to a second location where she succeeded in drowning AR. I don't know anything, Aldo Ripley Jr. told attorneys at his deposition. He said he had never seen his mother's alleged confession. I don't want to know. I don't know why that happened. I don't know what's real, quote unquote. Patricia Ripley was due back in court today for a motions hearing. If she's convicted, the defendant faces a potential death sentence. Aldo Ripley Jr. told attorneys that he still loves his mother and does not agree with the state's decision to seek the death penalty. Wow. The boy, the young boy has autism. Autism. And the mother, if you want to call her that, lies and says the boy was abducted when on the real she drowned him. Investigators say the mother intentionally drowned her child, then immediately attempted to mislead family members by reporting that the child had been abducted. The court documents outline a sequence that prosecutors argue shows both premeditation and consciousness of guilt. According to the court filings, the mother contacted relatives claiming the child had been taken. Her story shifted during questioning. Physical evidence and witness statements contradicted her account. Detectives say the abduction narrative unraveled quickly once inconsistencies surfaced. The newly released records indicate, or should I say, they detail a timeline that places the mother alone with the child before the drowning. Statements from family members who immediately sensed something was wrong, and evidence that the alleged abduction was fabricated after the child was already deceased. Prosecutors are now using these contradictions to argue intent and deception. The charges are filed and active. The case is moving forward with additional hearings, and more filings are expected as the defense responds to the state's narrative. It's at this stage where the story will continue to evolve through documents, motions, and expert analysis. Now, I've already got my piece. I'm just waiting for the whatever's coming next. When I get it, you guys will too, right here at the drama-free true crime destination. We have a sad story out of Georgia where a teen was, and I say was, charged with homicide after a prank on a Georgia teacher went wrong. And I believe there is an update to this story, which is why I say was. While the article is loading up at courttv.com, I will tell you the Georgia teen is charged with homicide after a prank ended with a beloved teacher deceased. We're out of Gainesville, Georgia. It was a prank that turned deadly, authorities said. A group of teenagers unspooled rolls of toilet paper outside the home of a beloved high school teacher who tripped in the street and was struck by a pickup truck as the prankster started to drive away. The 40-year-old teacher, Jason Hughes, died after being brought to the hospital last Friday. Hall County, that's according to the Hall County Sheriff's Office. The 18-year-old driver of the pickup was arrested on a felony charge of vehicular homicide, and 4 other teens were charged with misdemeanors. The Hughes family said he knew and loved the 5 students involved and urged authorities to drop all charges against them. The Hughes family that this was a terrible tragedy, and our family is determined to prevent a separate tragedy from occurring, ruining the lives of these students. This statement was provided to the Associated Press on Monday. This would be counter to Jason's lifelong dedication of investing in the lives of these children. Hughes taught math and helped coach golf, football, and baseball at North Hall High School in Gainesville, which is about 55 miles northeast of Atlanta. Students and Hughes' fellow teachers left a makeshift memorial of flowers piled along a section of fence outside the school. Sean Pender, the school's football coach, said that Hughes helped players with their academics and was also a man of deep faith who led a weekly Bible study for other coaches. Pender wrote social media posts, "What made Jason so special was the way he did it. He never judged. He never forced anything on anyone. He simply loved people well. He met people where they were, lifted them up, and reminded them that they mattered." End quote. The teenagers pulled up in 2 vehicles outside of Hughes' home at about 11:40 p.m. Friday and began wrapping his trees with toilet paper, according to the sheriff's office in a news release. It said the teens started to leave when Hughes came out of the house. As one of the teens began to drive away in a pickup truck, Hughes tripped and fell into the road and was ran over. After Hughes was struck, the teens tried to render aid until emergency responders arrived, according to the sheriff's office. Hughes' family said he wasn't trying to confront the teens, but rather had heard in advance about their prank and hoped to surprise them. Authorities charged the pickup's driver, Jaden Ryan Wallace, with first-degree vehicular homicide, a felony punishable by 3 to 15 years in prison under Georgia law. He was also charged with reckless driving, which is a misdemeanor. Wallace's case did not show up in online court records on Monday, and it was not immediately known if he had an attorney who could speak for him. The 4 other teens were charged with misdemeanor counts of criminal trespassing and littering on private property, according to the sheriff's office. Decisions on how to prosecute the teens ultimately lie with Hall County District Attorney Lee Derrick. "I'm not commenting on that case presently," Derrick told the Associated Press reporter by phone. "I don't have enough information about it to do so." All right. Now, I am actively looking to see if there's an update for this, because there are conflicting updates as to whether those teams are being charged, and some saying not so. So I'm looking that up right now, and okay, I am getting that word right now. That those this is I'm bringing that update courtesy of one of my local news stations here, KATU in Portland. Shout out to my good friends at K2. And once this page gets loaded up, because you know how slow computers are. All right. right, we got word that a Georgia prosecutor on Friday, this past Friday, dropped a vehicular homicide against an 18-year-old high school student who was previously accused in the death of a teacher during what authorities described as a prank that turned tragic. The teacher, Jason Hughes, age 40, died after being taken to a hospital on March 6th. Jaden Ryan Wallace was arrested on a felony charge of vehicular homicide, while 4 other All high school students were charged with misdemeanors. The charge stemmed from an incident in which Wallace allegedly took part in a prank that led to a deadly crash involving Hughes. That's not correct. That part isn't correct. He was ran over after he had tripped. That's the difference between getting it directly from that source versus getting it from an outside source. Anyway, investigators said initially the circumstances surrounding the incident supported a vehicular homicide charge. So the students had gone to Hughes' home around 11:40 p.m. and began wrapping his trees, the sheriff's office said. They started to leave when Hughes came outside. His family said he had heard in advance about the prank and hoped to surprise them. One of the students began to drive away in a pickup truck. Hughes fell into the road and was run over, according to the sheriff's office. After Hughes was hit, the students stopped and tried to help him until emergency responders arrived. Prosecutors said the decision to drop the vehicular homicide charge was based on the facts of the case and legal standards required to prove the offense in court. Hughes' family had asked authorities to drop the charges. While the charge was dropped, prosecutors did not immediately clarify whether other charges remained pending against Wallace. Prosecutors did not release any additional details about the evidence that led to the decision. Well, at least that is some good news. Okay, first of all, we know that senior pranks is a tradition in a lot of different high schools. This wasn't just a random stunt. You have a group of high school seniors who went to Hughes' home to carry out a long-standing toilet paper prank tradition. They've done it for years, and something Hughes reportedly knew this was coming. The fatal chain of events, as we've heard, teens ran back toward their cars after the prank. Hughes followed them into the roadway. He slipped and fell. And 18-year-old Jaden Ryan Wallace, driving a pickup truck, accidentally ran over him. Hughes later died at the hospital. Police emphasized that the teen stopped immediately and tried to help. So the charges as it stands right now is that Wallace is no longer charged with first-degree vehicular homicide. He is charged with reckless driving, which is a misdemeanor, along with criminal trespass and littering, also misdemeanors. The 4 other teens also were charged with criminal trespass and littering. All 5 of the teens are 18 years of age. In a rare and powerful twist, as mentioned, the Hughes family has publicly said he knew the prank was coming, meaning Jason Hughes. He was to catch the kids. They view this death as a tragic accident and not a crime, and they asked the prosecutors to drop the charges to avoid a separate tragedy for those students.
Tomorrow, there will be showers, with a high of 62 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of 43 degrees.
And that was my weather update from my Echo device. Anyway, the procedural movement lets us know that some reporting indicates that prosecutors have already dropped the charges against Wallace and the others, citing the facts as accidental rather than criminal. The case remains a point of community debate and legal scrutiny. If this is if this is an accidental incident, then I stand with the family. drop the charges against these kids. Let them go on and graduate, and let's hope and pray that nothing like this ever happen again in the future. Next up on this, a judge is refusing to toss the case against a former police officer that this evidence must be in court. Oh boy, this is going to be a doozy. Come on, there we go. We are in Boston. A federal judge has refused to dismiss, meaning he will now stand trial on charges that he murdered his mistress and her unborn baby. Matthew Farwell is charged with killing Sandor, who was 8 to 10 weeks February 2021 when her body was found. Birchmore had been in a secret relationship with Farwell that began when Birchmore was 15 years of age, according to the federal indictment. At the time, Birchmore was part of a youth program with Salton Police Department, in which Farwell was an officer. Farwell has pleaded not guilty to the charges. In a motion for the charges to be dismissed, Farwell noted that Birchmore's death was originally ruled a suicide by hanging and that no charges were filed against the defendant for more than 3.5 years. The motion argues that the indictment lacks enough substantial information to justify the charges. Missing from the superseding indictment and the information thus far disclosed are necessary details regarding multiple elements of the offenses charged, including failing to provide details regarding the acts constituting the alleged intent related to preventing communication to law enforcement and the reasonable likelihood that any communication prevented would have been to a federal law enforcement officer or a federal judge. Chief United States District Judge Denise Casper denied Farwell's motion, finding that the superseding indictment is sufficiently specific in the charges it's laid out. If Farwell is convicted as charged, he faces a potential life sentence in prison. That's because the prosecutors elected not to seek the death penalty. Whew. So here's what we know. The defendant, Matthew Farwell, is a former law enforcement officer, now facing a homicide charge tied to the death of a woman allegedly having an affair with. His background in policing is central because it shapes both the public scrutiny and the legal strategy. The defense's move was in filing a ruling to toss the case in its entirety, arguing that there was insufficient evidence, investigative flaws, unreliable witness statements, and that prosecutors couldn't meet the threshold for trial. This was their attempt to stop the case before it even reached the jury. The judge, on the other hand, rejected the motion by saying the state presented enough evidence to move forward. Disputed facts must be resolved at trial, not dismissed early. And the defense arguments go to credibility, not legal sufficiency. This is a clear signal that the court believes the allegations deserves a full hearing. And the alleged motive? Prosecutors say the former officer killed the woman to end the affair, avoid exposure, and prevent fallout in both his personal and professional life. The state is framing this as a relationship-driven homicide with a power imbalance at its core. So what's next? The pretrial motions will continue. Discovery remains active, and a trial date is expected to be set soon. The ruling will keep the case alive and pushes it toward a full evidentiary showdown. And with that, all I can say is they will push this thing and push this thing until they finally get to trial, and we will see whether Matthew Farwell is guilty on all charges or not so much. Stay tuned. Next, we're gonna go back to Florida to run down the two biggest the biggest points of the 90-day attempted drowning trial. Florida versus Cole Goldberg. Let me break down what happened. What happened first? Cole Goldberg charged with attempted first degree after prosecutors said he tried to drown his then girlfriend Carolyn Schwitzky during a boating trip in 2022. The case became known as the 90-day trial because of the statutory deadline for bringing it to court. No, that's not true. That's because of the show was the reality show that they were both on, 90 Day Fiance. Anyway, the setting happened in the water off of Pinellas County, Florida. Both sides agreed that the couple was in the water together. The conditions were rough and a struggle occurred. Everything else is in dispute. Oh, and Goldberg really rolled the dice here. He chose a bench trial, which means no jury. The judge alone decides guilt or innocence, and the credibility becomes the central battlefield. This choice shaped the entire tone of the proceedings. The prosecutors say Goldberg held Schwitzky underwater, intentionally trying to drown her. The defense says Goldberg was struggling to stay afloat himself. He never attacked her. The judge ultimately, we'll find out exactly how the judge decided. But before we do that, let's get into the key testimony. We're going to start with Carolyn Schwitzky first. She's described alleged assault in the water by saying, quote, "I thought I was going to die." I thought I was going to die. All right, let's see. West Palm Beach for this trial. A fit stand in a Florida courtroom to describe the moment she says her ex-boyfriend tried to kill her. "I just remembered being dragged in the water," Carolyn Schwitzky LeBron told the jury. "I thought it was like a shark or something." Cole Goldberg is standing trial after pleading not guilty to a single charge of attempted second-degree murder for the incident in Boca Bash in 2022. That morning, he wasn't really happy with me, Schwitzky LeBron testified. The two, who dated for approximately 9 months, had gone to the boating event together in the early afternoon of April 24th. "The whole day was just not pleasant. We tried to make it pleasant, but he was irritated with me. I was a little frustrated," quote unquote. Schwitzky described Goldberg as jealous and said their argument was fueled by alcohol. Eventually, she decided she wanted to leave, but she said Goldberg wouldn't let her. Quote, "He kept following me. He wasn't understanding that I just wanted to be alone," she said. And things got worse. Things escalated when the two were standing on the back of a boat. Schwitzky LeBron said that Goldberg tried to grab her in a hug from behind and refused to let her go. The two fell to the floor of the vessel and continued to struggle. "He wasn't trying to let go," she said. "At one point, he bit me, and he dug his nails at me." Schwitzky managed to wriggle away and went into the water. with all of her things left behind on the boat. She began swimming until she neared another boat. While she was still in the water and talking to the people on board that boat, Goldberg allegedly grabbed her and tried to hold her underwater. Quote, I remember in the water he had his hands on my neck, and I kept trying to get his hands off me. I kept trying to kick him. He just kept jolting my neck back and forth. End quote. Witnesses who testified at Goldberg's trial have described seeing him grab the victim around the neck and hold her underwater. Switzky LeBron described herself in court as an entertainer who has been on reality TV for most of her life. She has appeared on 90 Day Fiancé as well as Divorce Court. So now we got Carolyn Switzky's side of that. When she said quote, I thought I was going to die, that became the prosecution's anchor. It framed the incident as a deliberate, violent act. The evidence that supported that was the bruising consistent with a struggle, her immediate outcry after the incident, and witnesses who described her as terrified and disoriented. The prosecution's strategy was to lean heavily on her fear, the physical struggle, and the idea that Goldberg had motive and opportunity. Her testimony was the emotional high point of the state's case. Came, ladies and gentlemen, the opportunity for the defense to present their case, and of course, Cole Goldberg decided he would go ahead and testify on his own behalf. He denies trying to drown his girlfriend and was sinking. He took the stand on Wednesday. The 26-year-old Goldberg faced a charge of attempted the Boca Bash on April 24, 2022 as, quote, I would never do that. When he asked if he tried to drown his girlfriend. Carolyn Switzky, the alleged victim, testified on Tuesday to her version of events. She described an angry Goldberg, became increasingly belligerent over the course of the day before he physically attacked. She described the defendant as grabbing onto her, digging his nails into her, and eventually holding her around the neck. And Goldberg described a different day, one filled with fun and no drama. While Switzky claimed Goldberg threw a can of seltzer at her face, Goldberg said he was merely tossing her drink that she had asked for. Goldberg said he never grabbed the alleged victim or pushed her into the water. He said Switzky jumped into the ocean on her own. Concerned for her safety, Goldberg said he jumped in the water after Switzky, but was quickly overwhelmed by the water splashing in his eyes and into his mouth. I didn't intend to hurt her, Goldberg said, because it was the first thing he saw. There was nothing to hold on, and I was sinking. Very scary. Even after officers with the Fish and Wildlife Commission arrived on the scene, Goldberg was confused. He didn't understand what was going on, he said. After officers brought him onto their boat and began questioning him, Goldberg said he thought the officers were planning to reunite the couple. At no point, he said, did he think that Switzky was breaking up with him or trying to escape him. Goldberg has elected to waive his right to a jury trial, and the judge alone will decide his fate. And that's where we're about to head to right now. What was the fate of Cole Goldberg? Is he guilty or is he innocent of trying to attempt to take the life of Carolyn Switzky LeBron? We're about to find that out as soon as I can get to this link. And here we go. Nah. All right. All right, this is the moment we waited for. A Florida man was acquitted on all charges. Acquitted of the charges he tried to murder his girlfriend while they were out boating in South Florida. 27-year-old Cole Presselberg was charged with attempted second-degree murder after prosecutors say he tried to strangle his then-girlfriend, Carolyn Schwitzky, while the two were attending a Boca Bash event on 24, 2022. Cheers erupted in court with shouts of, "It's his birthday!" after Judge John Parnafiello announced his findings and that the defendant was not guilty of all charges he faced. Goldberg had waived his right to a jury trial and opted for Judge Parnafiello to decide his fate. The couple, who had been dating for approximately a year at the time of the incident, got into an argument while aboard a boat at the event in 2022. Investigators say Schwitzky tried to get away, but Goldberg physically held her and tried to prevent her from leaving. She eventually jumped off the boat and tried to swim to another boat nearby, prompting Goldberg to jump into the water after her. A witness from the second boat told police that once in the water, Goldberg grabbed her by the throat with both hands, attempted to strangle her, and was holding her underwater with incomplete rage. The strangers on the second boat were able to pull the alleged victim on board, but wouldn't let Goldberg on the boat. When police arrived at the scene, he was swimming beneath the two boats. Goldberg was initially charged with domestic battery by strangulation. Those charges were upgraded more than a year after the incident to attempted second-degree murder. Prosecutors offered Goldberg a plea agreement that would have required him to serve 6 months in jail and 3 years of probation, as well as a 500-word letter of apology. He turned down the offer, saying he would not accept a plea to a felony. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the way things went down in that particular case. And I know a couple of episodes ago, I think this was sometime last week that I was on here. I made um this guy was really trying his luck rolling the dice like this. When he made the decision to take this on as a bench case, not even thinking about the plea deal, he took it on as a bench case, leaving the judge to decide guilt or innocence. No jury, no, the judge decides on innocence, and no that's on the battlefield is credibility of the witnesses. The judge ultimately acquitted Goldberg, citing reasonable doubt, but the testimony remains the emotional core of the case. There you have it. Sometimes even with acquittal, it's justice served. Whew, that's unbelievable, if you ask me. But then that's the way it happens. The judge here's how the final interpretation of how the judge ruled. The state didn't prove intent beyond a reasonable doubt. The chaotic water conditions created too much ambiguity, and conflicting testimony made a conviction legally impossible. That's the reason why Goldberg was acquitted. So all that put together, justice served. Finally, this one we can call this a legal heartbreaker. Mackenzie Shrilla wanted to appeal her case, and it was denied, all because the papers were filed 1 day late. 1 day late. Oh, I kind of hate this for her. I really kind of hate this for her. All right, here's what. A teenager sentenced to prison won't be getting an appeal after her filed the paperwork too late. Ohio's 8th District Court of Appeals upheld a trial court's decision denying Mackenzie Shrilla's appeal, saying that it was filed 1 day after the 365-day jurisdictional deadline. Shrilla was 17 when she had a car crash that killed her boyfriend and his friend in July 2022. Video showed Shrilla racing down the street, reaching speeds of 100 miles an hour before she hit a brick building, killing the 2 passengers in her car. She was convicted of 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, and 2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide following a trial in 2023. Judge Nancy Russo sentenced her to an aggregate term of 15 years to life in prison. Under Ohio law, a defendant appealing their verdict is 365 days from the time the trial transcript is filed with the Court of Appeals to submit their petition for. Shrilla filed her petition on October 2024, 1 day after the 365-day deadline. In her appeal to the 8th District, Shrilla argued that the clock didn't start until December 15, 2023, when transcripts from a hearing that bound her case from juvenile to adult court were filed. Justices sided with the state, which argued that a juvenile hearing does not satisfy the statutory requirement of trial transcripts. Shrilla also argued that because 2024 was a leap year, she should have been given an extra day to file the petition, but the justices disagreed, saying Ohio law is clear that PCR petitions must be filed within 365 days after the trial transcript is filed in the Court of Appeals, not on the date's 1-year anniversary. Jail records show that Shrilla is currently housed at the Ohio Reformatory for Women, a state prison in Marysville. Oh, you gotta hate it for her. 1 day. Anyway, the background of her case, Shrilla was convicted in Ohio for intentionally driving her car into a brick building at high speed, killing her boyfriend and his friend. Prosecutors argued it was deliberate. The judge agreed, calling it a mission of death. She received a lengthy sentence, that aggregate sentence of 15 years to life. Now, this is where it was crazy. Her legal team attempted to challenge the conviction, but the notice of appeal was filed 1 day late. Ohio's appellate rules are strict and unforgiving, and the court has no discretion, none, to accept a late filing unless specific criteria were met. In this case, those criteria was not met there. The appeals court issued a procedural ruling. day removed the. As a result, the appeal was denied outright. No arguments were considered, no evidence reviewed. This case ended on procedure, not substance. The ruling locks in Shrilla's conviction and sentence. It highlights how rigid appellate timelines are and underscores the importance of procedural precision in criminal cases. It also means that any future legal action would have to come through post-conviction relief, not a appeal. Man, you really gotta hate it for Mackenzie for that one. But then again, she'll know that whenever you hear the word appeal in court, your best bet by the time you hit those bars, that's when you start filing the paperwork. Not a second sooner. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am through for tonight, but I'll be back late night tomorrow for the final word. I want to thank you all so much for joining me on YouTube and on TikTok, and because I know this will be the first time you ever saw me here. I appreciate you joining in, and I appreciate everybody that joins me on YouTube constantly. You guys are the heart and soul of Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Let me get something out the way before I do, and I really, you guys, we'll get started. We'll get started with the tomorrow night at 11 time, and have so much more to cover. Again, you guys are overwhelmed. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna say this in parting. If I can get myself together here. There's my issue. I got all right. I got this taken care of. Of course, my computer's gonna run slow, but hey, it's running quick enough for me to end this out right. All right, guys. Sorry for the delay in ending this thing, but still, that's gonna wrap up tonight's edition of the main event. The cases that demanded our attention and the clarity to understand them. I want to thank you all for spending part of your evening here with me, and it's where the facts and the drama stays out. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw, and this is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded. I will see you here tomorrow night. Thank you so much for joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Please be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media and support. Thank you so much for joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Please be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media and support the channel through PayPal and Cash App. You can get your true crime news right here with no gimmicks no drama, and no BS. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.